What's the first thing you do when your alarm goes off? And I mean really, not what you wish you did, but what actually happens in that raw, unfiltered moment between sleep and consciousness. Do you hit snooze? Do you reach for your phone? Or do you lie there, already negotiating with yourself about how much you can get away with before the day drags you out of bed? Here's the uncomfortable truth. That single decision, the one you make in those first 10 seconds of your day, is quietly programming your entire life. And most of us, we're completely unconscious of it. We think we're just waking up. But what we're actually doing is training our brain, setting a pattern, building an identity. And that identity determines whether we spend our days feeling in control or constantly reacting to whatever life throws at us. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Do you control your mornings, or do your mornings control you? Because if you're honest with yourself, you already know the answer. And that answer is shaping your career, your relationships, your energy, your focus, everything. This isn't another motivational speech about waking up at 5 a.m. or cold showers or journaling. This is about understanding the psychology behind why some people seem to effortlessly move forward every single day, while others, equally talented, equally intelligent, stay stuck in the Samaru pew of good intentions and zero follow-through. The difference isn't willpower, it's not genetics, it's not luck. The difference is how they've wired their mornings. Your brain is at its most vulnerable in the first hour after you wake up. It's like wet cement. Whatever you pour into it during that window hardens into the foundation of your entire day. If you pour distraction, your day will be scattered. If you pour intention, your day will have direction. It's that simple and that terrifying. Think about what most people do. They wake up already behind. The alarm feels like an enemy. They snooze it once, twice, maybe 3 times, already losing the first battle of the day. Then they finally drag themselves out of bed and immediately grab their phone. Emails, messages, social media, news. Within minutes, their brain is flooded with other people's priorities, other people's emergencies, other people's opinions. And just like that, they've handed control of their mental state to the world. This is what I call reactive mode. And once you start your day in reactive mode, you never get out of it. You spend the entire day responding to notifications, to requests, to problems. You never actually get ahead. You're always catching up. And at the end of the day, you collapse, exhausted, wondering why you feel like you accomplished nothing that really mattered. Now, imagine a different scenario. Imagine you wake up and your first action, before you check anything, before you engage with the outside world, is intentional. Maybe it's just sitting in silence for 5 minutes. Maybe it's writing down your top 3 priorities. Maybe it's stretching, breathing, moving your body. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be yours. What you're doing in that moment is sending a signal to your brain. I am in control. My day doesn't run me. I run my day. And that signal, repeated day after day, becomes your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who's disciplined, someone who's intentional, someone who designs their life instead of just surviving it. And when your identity changes, your results change automatically. But here's where most people get stuck. They know this stuff. They've read the articles, listened to the podcasts, maybe even tried building a morning routine, but they quit. Why? Because change is uncomfortable. and we're biologically wired to avoid discomfort. Our brain craves familiarity, even if that familiarity is keeping us mediocre. So let me ask you another uncomfortable question. Do you actually want to change? Or do you just like thinking about change? Because those are two very different things. Thinking about change feels productive. It feels good, but it doesn't move the needle. Real change happens in the small, unglamorous moments when nobody's watching. It happens at 6 a.m. when you're tired and your bed is warm and every fiber of your being wants to stay under the covers. That's the moment. That's where your future is decided. And the crazy part, nobody cares. Nobody's going to applaud you for getting up on time. Nobody's tracking whether you scroll Instagram or read for 10 minutes. This isn't about impressing anyone. This is about who you become when no one's looking. Because that person, the one who shows up when it's hard, that's the real you. Let's talk about what actually happens in your brain when you wake up. There's a concept in neuroscience called neural priming. Essentially, the first actions you take in the morning prime your brain for how it will operate the rest of the day. If you start with laziness, distraction, and delay, your brain interprets that as the standard. It thinks, oh, this is how we're doing things today. And it will continue that pattern all day long. But if you start with even a tiny bit of intentionality, getting up on time, avoiding your phone, doing something that requires a bit of effort, your brain gets a different message. It thinks, we're being disciplined today, we're focused, we're in control. And it amplifies that energy throughout your day. Here's the harsh reality. The quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of your mornings. If your mornings are weak, your life will slowly become weak. This isn't poetry. This is behavioral science. Habits don't exist in isolation. They create chain reactions. A weak morning leads to a weak decision, which leads to another weak decision, which compounds into a weak week, a weak month, a weak year. Your brain doesn't care what you consciously believe about yourself. It only cares about what you repeatedly do. If you hit snooze every morning, you're teaching your brain that avoiding discomfort is normal. If you immediately grab your phone, you're teaching your brain that distraction is acceptable. And over time, these patterns become your identity. So here's the real question. Are you building your identity, or are your habits building it for you? Because most people think they're making conscious choices, but in reality, their past habits are controlling their current actions. And the morning is the most powerful opportunity to interrupt that cycle. When you consciously decide what you'll do in the morning, you're hacking your brain's autopilot. You're taking back control. It's not easy because your brain will resist. It wants comfort. It wants the familiar. But that's exactly where growth lives, on the other side of resistance. Every time you do something disciplined in the morning, even something small, you're sending a signal. I'm changing. I'm different. I'm not the person I was yesterday. And every time you choose comfort, you're sending the opposite signal. I'm stuck. I'm weak. I can't change. Imagine doing this every single day for 30 days. Imagine winning that first battle every morning. How would you feel? Different, stronger, more confident, more clear. But if you keep choosing comfort, you'll feel the same doubt, the same guilt, the same frustration eating away at you. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Most people know this information, but they don't apply it. Why? Because change is hard. Following old habits is easy. Building a new system requires effort. And this is exactly the point where most people quit. They think, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. So the question isn't whether morning habits are powerful. The question is, are you willing to accept the discomfort that will take you to your better version? Do you really want control? Or do you want to keep repeating the same patterns and then complain about why your life isn't changing? Because here's the simple truth. Your morning is your direction. If you don't change it, nothing will change. But if you consciously design it, you can slowly push your entire life in a new direction. And this is the moment where you have to decide, will you control your day or will your day control you? You might think that creating massive change in your life requires massive decisions, some extraordinary action, some life-changing moment where everything suddenly shifts. But the truth is the exact opposite. The things that shape your life the most are the small habits you often ignore. And the most dangerous part? These habits are so small that you don't even notice their impact. But slowly, they become your entire identity. Take a close look at how your day begins. When your alarm rings, what do you do in that moment? Just one small decision. Snooze or get up. It seems insignificant, but behind it is a deep psychological pattern. When you hit snooze, you're teaching your brain that running from discomfort is okay. And this pattern doesn't stay limited to your morning. It spreads throughout your entire day. You start avoiding difficult tasks. You delay important decisions, and unconsciously, you create a life where you're always behind. This is what we call the psychology of micro-habits. Micro-habits are tiny actions so small that you could easily ignore them. But if you do them consistently, their effect compounds into something massive. It's like drops of water slowly cutting through stone. You don't see anything change in one day, but over time, the result becomes undeniable. Now here's an important question. If small habits are so powerful, why don't we take them seriously? The answer is because our brains have become addicted to instant gratification. We want things that show results immediately. If a habit doesn't give an instant reward, our brain doesn't consider it important. And this is the biggest trap, because the things that give instant rewards often hurt us in the long term, and the things that give slow rewards are what actually improve our lives. Think about it. When you wake up and scroll through your phone, you get instant dopamine. Your brain feels happy. You feel good. But long term, it destroys your focus, your clarity, your discipline. On the other hand, if you wake up and do something productive, like reading for a bit, planning, or just sitting quietly and thinking, it won't feel as fun at first. But long term, it increases your thinking ability, your confidence, your control. Here's a deep truth you need to understand. Your life isn't built by your big decisions. It's built by your small daily actions. What you do every day determines where you'll be 6 months from now, what you'll become a year from now. And this is why successful people aren't doing magic. They're just consistently repeating small, right actions. But here's another psychological barrier: consistency. Starting is easy. Continuing is hard. Why? Because our brain can't tolerate boredom. When a habit is new, there's excitement. But after a few days, it starts feeling boring. And that's exactly when most people quit. They think, This isn't working for me. But in reality, the problem isn't the habit, it's their consistency. So ask yourself an honest question. How many times have you started something and then quit halfway? How many times have you decided, tomorrow I'll wake up early, tomorrow I'll be productive? But after a few days, everything went back to the way it was? This isn't failure. This is a pattern. And until you understand and break this pattern, your life will keep running in repeat mode. Here's the turning point. You need to see your habits not as big goals, but as small systems. You shouldn't think, I need to build a perfect morning routine. Instead, think, I just need to take one small step. For example, if you can't be productive for an hour in the morning, start with 10 minutes. If you can't do a full workout, start with just 5 push-ups. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they're teaching your brain a new pattern. When you take small steps, your brain doesn't resist because it feels easy. And slowly, these easy actions become part of your identity. Then you don't have to force discipline. It starts coming naturally. And that's the real game. Not forcing discipline, but building it. But here's a warning. Micro habits aren't only positive. They can be negative too, like wasting a little time every day, procrastinating a little every day, doubting yourself a little every day. These are also micro habits, and they also compound. The only difference is their result is negative. And the most dangerous part? You don't even notice them until it's too late. So now the choice is in your hands. You can keep ignoring your small habits and slowly build a life full of regret. Or you can start taking those small actions seriously today. Actions that can completely change your future. Remember, change never comes from big jumps. It comes from small, almost invisible steps that you repeat every day. And if you consciously choose those steps, you can give your life a new direction. But if you ignore them, those same steps will take you to a place where coming back will be extremely difficult. So the question isn't whether micro habits are powerful. The question is, which small habit will you choose today that will move you forward or slowly pull you back? Because in the end, your life is the result of those small decisions you make every morning without thinking. You think your biggest problem is lack of motivation, but the truth is something else. The real problem is your scattered focus. And this focus breaks the most during the morning, when your brain should be at its freshest. This is the time when you could give your life direction. But most people hand it over to distraction during this very time. Imagine this. You wake up. Your mind is blank, ready to do something meaningful. But as soon as you pick up your phone, one message, one notification, one reel, and boom, your entire attention is hijacked. Now your mind isn't under your control. It's under the control of random inputs. And this slowly becomes your biggest weakness. You forget how to focus. Here's a deep psychological truth. Your brain isn't naturally lazy. It's just easily distracted. And in today's world, distraction isn't an accident. It's designed. Every app, every notification, every platform is built to keep you engaged for as long as possible. This means if you don't consciously protect your focus, it will automatically disappear. Ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Can you really not focus? Or have you just never taught your brain how to focus? Because focus isn't an inborn talent. It's a skill that needs to be trained. And the perfect place to train it is your morning. The first 1 to 2 hours after you wake up are golden hours for your brain. During this time, distractions are minimal. Your mind is fresh. Your willpower is at its peak. If you use this time correctly, you can give your entire day a powerful direction. But if you waste it, the whole day becomes scattered and reactive. Now, the problem is, we overcomplicate focus. We think focus means working nonstop for 4 to 5 hours. But real focus is much simpler than that. Focus means giving complete attention to one thing at a time without any interruption, and you can build this skill through small practices. But the biggest enemy here is instant dopamine. When you scroll your phone right after waking up, your brain instantly becomes addicted to high stimulation. Now, when you sit down to do normal work, it feels boring. Your mind keeps searching for distraction because it wants that same high stimulation. And this is where the vicious cycle of procrastination begins. So what's the solution? Dopamine control. You need to give your brain a low stimulation environment during the first few hours of the morning. This means no unnecessary phone use, no random content, no distractions. At first, this will feel uncomfortable because your brain is used to that high stimulation. But slowly, your mind will start calming down and you'll naturally start focusing. Here's the turning point. You need to design your environment in your favor because willpower is limited, but environment is powerful. If your phone is next to you, notifications are on, and distractions are easily accessible, no matter how much you try, you won't be able to focus. So ask yourself, have you intentionally designed your environment, or do you just leave it as is? Because if you put your phone away when you wake up, if you decide on a specific place where you'll only do focused work, if you make your surroundings distraction-free, you can improve your focus without much struggle. But here's a harsh reality. Building focus is boring. There's no excitement in it. There's no instant reward. And that's why most people avoid it. They chase quick dopamine and ignore long-term growth. But if you really want different results, you have to accept this boring process. Now look toward the future. If you stay stuck in distractions like this, where will you be a year from now? Same place, same problems, same frustration. But if you start taking your focus seriously from today, if you protect your morning, imagine how much clarity and control you'll feel. And this is the most powerful realization. You don't need to change your entire day. You just need to protect your morning. If you win the morning, you've won half the day. And when you keep winning this, slowly you start winning your entire life. So now, the decision is yours. Will you keep handing your focus over to distractions, or will you consciously build it? Because the truth is very simple. Whoever controls their attention controls their life. And this control doesn't come from some big opportunity. It comes from small, disciplined actions every morning. You keep getting motivated. You start something new. You go strong for 2, 3, maybe 4 days. And then suddenly, everything stops. Then the guilt comes, the frustration comes, and you tell yourself, I just can't stay consistent. But have you ever seriously tried to understand why this happens? Do you really lack discipline? Or have you been misunderstanding discipline altogether? The truth is, discipline isn't a feeling, it's not a mood, and it doesn't depend on motivation. Discipline is a system, a structure that forces you to take action even when you don't feel like it. And this is exactly where most people lose, because they tie discipline to emotion. Ask yourself, Are you in the same mood every day? Sometimes you're energetic, sometimes lazy, sometimes motivated, sometimes completely blank. If you run your actions based on your mood, your life will become just as random. And this is why so many people live average lives despite having potential, because they don't have a system. They only have feelings. Here's an uncomfortable truth. You're not achieving your goals because you're not consistent. And you're not consistent because you've never properly built discipline. You keep starting based on motivation, and when the motivation runs out, you stop too. But the real game starts right here. Discipline means you take your future so seriously that you're willing to sacrifice your present comfort. When your alarm rings in the morning and your mind says, "Let's sleep a little more," the decision you make in that moment shapes your identity. You either choose your comfort or your growth. And this moment is the most important, because discipline isn't built in big decisions. It's built in small moments. Every time you take action against your comfort, you're teaching your brain, "I'm in control." And every time you choose comfort, you're teaching your brain, "I'm weak." Now imagine if you win over your comfort every single morning. If you take a slightly disciplined action every day, how will you feel after 30 days? A different confidence, a different clarity. But if you choose comfort every day, the same doubt, the same guilt, the same frustration will keep eating you alive. Here's a psychological concept you need to understand: identity-based discipline. This means you don't take actions because you have to, but because you want to become that type of person. For example, if you see yourself as a disciplined person, you automatically start making those kinds of decisions. And this identity slowly makes your actions effortless. But the problem is, most people don't see themselves as disciplined. They already have a belief sitting in their mind: "I can't stay consistent. I give up quickly." And these beliefs limit their actions because your brain always tries to prove the identity you believe about yourself. So here's the turning point. You need to consciously change your identity. You need to decide who you want to become, and then take small actions according to that identity. At first, it will feel fake, uncomfortable, but this very process will slowly transform you. But here's another harsh reality. Discipline is boring. There's no excitement in it. There's no instant thrill. And that's why people avoid it. They like things that are fun, easy, give instant rewards. But those same things pull them back in the long term. So ask yourself a serious question. Are you willing to sacrifice your long-term life for short-term comfort? Or do you want to endure a little discomfort and make your future better? Because this decision isn't a one-time thing. You have to make it every day, especially in the morning. Morning time is the biggest test of discipline. When nobody's watching, when there's no pressure, what you do during that time is your real character. You can pretend all day long, but your morning actions reveal your truth. Now imagine if you make your mornings disciplined. If you keep a small commitment to yourself every day, slowly this becomes your identity. Then you don't have to push yourself. Discipline becomes natural. And when discipline becomes natural, success also becomes natural. But if you still ignore it, if you still think, "I'll start tomorrow," you need to understand one thing. You can't stop time. Every day you're delaying is stealing something from your future. And one day will come when you'll realize you wasted too much time. So now the choice is in front of you. You can either start building discipline from today, or you can stay stuck in the same cycle where you start, quit, and then blame yourself. Remember, discipline isn't punishment. It's the path to freedom. Because when you control yourself, no one else can control you. And this control doesn't come from some big decision. It comes from small, disciplined actions every morning. Now the question is, will you remain a slave to your comfort, or will you become the master of your discipline? Because your morning answers this question every single day. Let's talk about something most people completely overlook: the relationship between your morning and your entire identity. You see, every action you take in the morning isn't just about that moment. It's a vote for the type of person you're becoming. When you hit snooze, you're voting for the identity of someone who avoids discomfort. When you grab your phone immediately, you're voting for someone who's reactive and distracted. When you get up on time and do something intentional, you're voting for someone who's disciplined and in control. And here's what most people don't realize: you don't need to win every single vote. You just need to win most of them. If you win the morning 4 out of 7 days, you're moving forward. If you lose it 5 out of 7 days, you're moving backward. It's that simple. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people think they need perfect consistency, 100% or nothing. And when they inevitably fail, they give up completely. They think, I missed one day, so what's the point? But that's the wrong way to think about it. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about momentum. It's about never letting 2 days in a row slip away. Let me give you a framework that actually works. It's called the 2-day rule. Never miss 2 days in a row. If you skip your morning routine one day because you were sick or something came up, fine. But you absolutely cannot skip the next day, because missing one day is a mistake. Missing 2 days is the beginning of a new habit, a bad one. This is how discipline compounds, not through perfection, but through recovery. The ability to get back on track after you fall off is more important than never falling off in the first place. Because life happens. You will have bad days. You will oversleep. You will feel exhausted. That's normal. What's not normal, what separates people who succeed from people who stay stuck, is how quickly you get back. Now let's address something that nobody talks about: the shame spiral. You know what I'm talking about. You mess up your morning routine, and instead of just moving on, you spend the entire day feeling guilty. You beat yourself up. You think, I'm such a failure. I can't even wake up on time. And that shame becomes so heavy that it actually prevents you from trying again the next day. Here's what you need to understand. Guilt is useless. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't make you better. All it does is keep you stuck. Instead of guilt, practice what I call neutral observation. When you mess up, just notice it without judgment. Okay, I hit snooze today. That's data. What can I learn from this? Maybe you stayed up too late. Maybe your alarm is too easy to turn off. Maybe you need to put your phone across the room. Treat yourself like a scientist studying a subject, not like a judge punishing a criminal. Because when you remove the emotional charge from failure, you can actually improve. You can iterate. You can experiment. And slowly, you figure out what works for you. Here's another thing most people get wrong. They think discipline means doing the same thing every single day no matter what. But that's not discipline. That's rigidity. Real discipline is flexible. It adapts. It adjusts based on context. Let me explain. Say you have a morning routine where you wake up at 6 a.m., meditate for 10 minutes, work out for 30 minutes, and then plan your day. That's great. But what happens when you travel? What happens when you have an early meeting? What happens when you're genuinely exhausted and need more sleep? If your system can't adapt, you'll break it. And once you break it, you'll struggle to rebuild it. Instead, have a flexible framework. Have a minimum viable routine. The absolute smallest version of your morning that still counts as a win. Maybe it's just getting up without snoozing and drinking a glass of water. Maybe it's 5 minutes of stretching. The point is, even on your worst days, you do something. You keep the chain alive. Because here's what most people don't realize. The habit of doing the habit is more important than the habit itself. Let me say that again. The habit of showing up is more important than what you do when you show up. Doing 5 push-ups when you plan to do 50 is infinitely better than doing 0, because you're reinforcing the identity. I'm someone who shows up even when it's hard. Now let's talk about something powerful, the concept of keystone habits. These are habits that, when you do them, automatically make other habits easier. Waking up early is a keystone habit. When you wake up early, you naturally go to bed earlier. When you go to bed earlier, you sleep better. When you sleep better, you have more energy. When you have more energy, you eat better. You exercise more, you're more productive. One habit creates a cascade of positive effects. That's why your morning is so critical. It's not just about those first few hours. It's about how those hours set up everything else. If you win the morning, the entire day flows differently. You're proactive instead of reactive. You're calm instead of stressed. You're intentional instead of scattered. But here's the part nobody wants to hear. Building these habits takes time, not days, not weeks, months. Research shows it takes anywhere from 18 to 254 days for a habit to become automatic, with the average being around 66 days. That's over 2 months of consistent effort before it starts feeling natural. And this is where most people quit. They expect instant transformation. They want to feel different immediately. But that's not how the brain works. Your brain changes slowly. It resists change because change is metabolically expensive. Your brain wants to conserve energy, and habits are energy efficient. So when you try to build a new habit, your brain fights you. It throws every excuse, every rationalization, every feeling of resistance it can at you. Your job isn't to fight those feelings. Your job is to expect them, accept them, and act anyway. Because on the other side of that resistance is a completely different life. On the other side is the version of you who doesn't need to force discipline because it's just who you are. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. For the first week, everything feels hard. You're relying purely on willpower. You're white-knuckling it. You want to quit. This is normal. Don't be surprised by it. Just keep going. Week 2 and 3, it gets slightly easier. You're still thinking about it, still making conscious effort, but it's not quite as painful. You start to notice small benefits. Maybe you're a bit more focused during the day. Maybe you're sleeping better. These small wins keep you going. By week 4 to 6, something shifts. You're not thinking about it as much. It's starting to become automatic. You still have to be intentional, but it's not a battle anymore. And by week 8 to 12, it's just part of who you are. You don't debate it, you don't negotiate, you just do it. But here's the catch. You can't skip this process. There's no hack. There's no shortcut. You have to go through the uncomfortable phase. You have to do the boring work. And most people aren't willing to do that. They want the result without the process. They want the discipline without the discomfort. And that's why they stay stuck. So now I'll ask you directly, are you willing to be uncomfortable for 60 days? Are you willing to show up when you don't feel like it, when nobody's cheering for you, when there's no visible progress? Because that's what it takes. And if you're not willing, that's fine. Just stop pretending you want to change. Stop lying to yourself. At least be honest about it. But if you are willing, if there's even a small part of you that's ready to commit, then you need to understand something crucial. Your environment is everything. You can't willpower your way through a bad environment. If your bedroom is set up to make sleeping in easy and getting up hard, you'll lose. If your phone is next to your bed with notifications on, you'll lose. If you go to bed at midnight every night, you'll lose. Discipline isn't just about mental strength. It's about design. It's about engineering your environment so that the right choice is the easy choice. Put your alarm across the room so you have to get out of bed to turn it off. Charge your phone in another room so you can't grab it immediately. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Prepare your coffee maker so all you have to do is press a button. These seem like small things, but they're not. They're removing friction from the behavior you want and adding friction to the behavior you don't want. And over time, these small environmental changes make discipline almost effortless. Here's what I want you to understand. The person you're becoming is being shaped right now. Every morning, every decision, every moment, you choose growth over comfort or comfort over growth. You're not going to wake up one day and suddenly be different. You're going to wake up one day and realize you've been different for a while. You just didn't notice because the change was so gradual. And that's the beautiful part. You don't need dramatic transformation. You just need steady, consistent progress. You just need to be slightly better today than you were yesterday. And if you can do that, if you can win more mornings than you lose, you will be shocked at where you are a year from now. But you have to start. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next month. Today, right now, with the very next decision you make. Because your future isn't being built in some distant moment. It's being built right now, in the small choices you're making about how you'll start tomorrow. So let me leave you with this. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off, you're going to have a choice. Comfort or growth. Same or different. The person you've always been or the person you're trying to become. And whatever you choose in that moment, you're choosing your future. Choose wisely. Let's talk about something that's destroying your potential without you even realizing it. The attention economy, and specifically how it's hijacking your mornings and, by extension, your entire life. Here's what's happening. The moment you wake up and reach for your phone, you're entering a battlefield. Except you don't know you're in a battle. You think you're just checking messages or scrolling for a few minutes. But what's actually happening is hundreds of billions of dollars worth of psychological research, behavioral engineering, and artificial intelligence are being deployed against you. Their singular goal? To capture and hold your attention for as long as possible. Every app on your phone has been designed by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists specifically to trigger dopamine release in your brain. The pull to refresh mechanism? That's a slot machine. The endless scroll? That's a dopamine drip. The red notification badges? Those are designed to create anxiety that can only be relieved by clicking. And it works perfectly. Here's the problem. Your brain can't tell the difference between a genuine reward and an artificial one. When you see a like on your post, your brain releases dopamine just like it would if you accomplished something meaningful. When you watch a funny video, your brain lights up just like it would if you were having a real conversation with a friend. Your brain thinks it's getting something valuable, but it's getting junk food, empty calories. And just like junk food, the more you consume, the more you need to feel satisfied. This is called tolerance. Your brain adapts. What gave you a dopamine hit yesterday needs to be more stimulating today. So you scroll faster. You seek more extreme content. You jump from app to app, looking for that next hit. And before you know it, 30 minutes have passed. An hour, sometimes more. But here's the truly insidious part. This isn't just stealing your time, it's rewiring your brain. Every time you give in to the urge to check your phone, you're strengthening a neural pathway. You're literally training your brain to be distracted. You're teaching it that focus is optional, that boredom is intolerable, that immediate gratification is normal. And this training is happening most powerfully in the morning when your brain is at its most neuroplastic, its most moldable. Whatever patterns you establish in the first hour of your day become the default settings for the next 23 hours. If you start with distraction, you'll spend the whole day scattered. If you start with intention, you'll spend the whole day focused. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with your thoughts for 10 minutes without reaching for your phone? When was the last time you felt genuine boredom and didn't immediately try to escape it? For most people, the answer is they can't remember. And that's terrifying, because boredom isn't the enemy. Boredom is where creativity lives. Boredom is where deep thinking happens. Boredom is where you process your emotions, make connections, solve problems. But we've trained ourselves to fear boredom, to run from it the second it appears. And in doing so, we've lost the ability to think deeply. Your attention span isn't something you're born with. It's something you build or destroy. And right now, most of us are destroying it. Research shows that the average person's attention span has dropped from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds today. That's shorter than a goldfish. We literally can't focus on a single thing for more than a few seconds before our mind wanders or we feel the compulsion to check something. And this isn't an accident. This is by design. Because distracted people are profitable people. Distracted people consume. Distracted people don't question. Distracted people don't build. They just scroll, click, buy, repeat. And the companies that have built these platforms know this. They've optimized for it. So what's the solution? Digital detox, deleting all social media, going off the grid? For some people, maybe. But for most of us, that's not realistic. We need these tools for work, for staying connected, for information, The answer isn't to completely abandon technology. The answer is to take back control. And that control starts in the morning. Here's a simple but powerful rule. No phone for the first hour. That's it. When you wake up, don't touch your phone for 60 minutes. Not to check the time. Not to turn off your alarm. Get a real alarm clock. Not for anything. For that first hour, you are off the grid. I know what you're thinking. But what if there's an emergency? What if someone needs me? What if I miss something important? Let me be very clear. You won't. The world will not end if you're unreachable for 1 hour. Every emergency that's happened in human history before smartphones still got handled. People survived. You will too. What you're really afraid of isn't missing an emergency. What you're afraid of is missing out. FOMO. The fear that something interesting or important or entertaining is happening and you're not part of it. But here's the truth. There's always something happening. There will always be news, drama, content, updates. It never stops. And if you let it, it will consume every waking moment of your life. So you have to make a choice. You can be connected to everyone and everything, or you can be connected to yourself. You can't have both. Not first thing in the morning. Not when your brain is most vulnerable. Let's talk about what happens when you actually implement this. The first few days are brutal. You'll feel anxious. Your hand will reach for your phone automatically. You'll feel like something's missing, like you're forgetting something important. This is withdrawal. Your brain is literally going through a form of withdrawal from the dopamine hits it's accustomed to. This is normal. Don't fight it. Just notice it. By day 3 or 4, something interesting happens. The mornings start feeling different, quieter, calmer. You start noticing things you haven't noticed in years. The way the light comes through your window, the sound of birds outside, the taste of your coffee. You start having thoughts that aren't reactions to someone else's content. Original thoughts, your thoughts. By week 2, you'll realize you're thinking more clearly throughout the entire day. You're making better decisions. You're more creative. You're less anxious. And you'll wonder how you ever lived any other way. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about avoiding your phone. It's about what you replace it with. Because if you wake up and just lie in bed staring at the ceiling, you're still wasting the morning. You need to fill that hour with intention. Here's a framework that works. The first hour of your day should have 3 components: movement, mindfulness, and momentum. Let me break that down. Movement means getting your body active. It doesn't have to be intense. It can be stretching, yoga, a walk, some push-ups, whatever. The point is to wake up your body, get blood flowing, shake off the sleep inertia. When you move your body, you're signaling to your brain, we're awake, we're active, we're ready. Mindfulness means spending time with your thoughts without distraction. This could be meditation, journaling, or just sitting quietly with a cup of coffee. The point is to create space for your mind to process, to reflect, to plan. This is where clarity comes from. This is where you figure out what actually matters. Momentum means doing something that moves you forward. Reading a few pages of a book, working on a personal project, planning your day. Something that makes you feel like you're progressing, like you're building toward something. This creates a sense of accomplishment that carries through your entire day. Movement, mindfulness, momentum. If you can hit all three in that first hour, you've won the day before most people have even gotten out of bed. And the beautiful part? None of this requires willpower once it becomes routine. It becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. Now let's address something important. What about the weekends? Do you still follow this routine? And here's my answer, especially on weekends. Because weekends are when most people completely abandon their routines. They sleep in, they scroll for hours, they let the day drift away. And come Monday, they're starting from scratch again. All the momentum they built during the week is gone. But if you maintain your routine on weekends, even a lighter version of it, you keep the momentum. You don't have to restart every week. You just keep building. And this is how real, lasting change happens. Not through bursts of intense effort followed by collapse, but through steady, consistent progress that never fully stops. Here's another critical point. Your evening routine is just as important as your morning routine, because your evening sets up your morning. If you stay up until midnight scrolling, if you go to bed with your mind full of other people's content, if you don't give yourself time to wind down, you're sabotaging the next day before it even starts. A good evening routine looks like this. An hour before bed, all screens go off, not just your phone, TV, computer, tablet, everything. Use that hour to decompress. Read a physical book. Take a bath. Talk to your partner or family. Write in a journal. Prepare for the next day. The point is to transition from the chaos of the day into a calm, restful state. When you do this, you sleep better. And when you sleep better, you wake up better. You're not groggy, not hitting snooze, not dreading the day. You're rested, clear, ready. And that makes your morning routine infinitely easier. Let me share something that might surprise you. The quality of your sleep is more important than the quantity. You can sleep for 9 hours and wake up exhausted if that sleep was fragmented, shallow, full of stress hormones. Or you can sleep for 6 hours and wake up refreshed if that sleep was deep, restorative, uninterrupted. And what determines sleep quality? Your pre-sleep habits. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep and reducing sleep quality. Stimulating content, whether it's work emails, social media drama, or intense news, activates your stress response, making it harder for your brain to shut down. Eating late, drinking alcohol, not giving yourself a buffer between activity and sleep, all of these destroy sleep quality. So if you want to win your mornings, you have to win your evenings. They're connected. You can't separate them. And this is where most people fail. They focus only on the morning's routine and wonder why it's so hard. But they're staying up until midnight watching Netflix and scrolling Instagram. Of course it's hard. You're fighting against yourself. Here's a framework for thinking about your entire day. Your day is a closed loop. Everything affects everything else. Your morning affects your afternoon affects your evening affects your next morning. You can't optimize just one part and expect everything else to fall into place. You have to think systemically. And at the center of this system is your attention. Where you put your attention determines everything. If you give your attention to distractions, your day will be scattered. If you give your attention to what matters, your day will be meaningful. It's that simple. But controlling your attention is hard, harder than it's ever been, because you're not just fighting your own impulses. You're fighting billion-dollar corporations that have weaponized psychology against you. You're fighting algorithms designed to exploit your weaknesses. You're fighting a culture that treats constant connectivity as normal and disconnection as weird. This is why you need boundaries. Hard boundaries, non-negotiable boundaries, like no phone for the first hour, like no screens an hour before bed, like designated times to check email and social media, not constantly throughout the day. These boundaries might feel restrictive at first, but they're not restrictions, they're protections. They're protecting your most valuable resource, your attention. And here's what happens when you protect your attention. You start accomplishing things you've been meaning to do for years. You write that book. You learn that skill. You build that project. You have deeper conversations. You experience more joy because you're actually present. You're not half here, half scrolling. You're fully engaged with your life. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you reclaimed just 2 hours a day from mindless scrolling? 2 hours. That's 14 hours a week, 60 hours a month, 730 hours a year. That's over 30 full days. You could learn a language, get in the best shape of your life, build a business, master a craft, transform your relationships, all from time you're currently spending watching videos of strangers doing things you'll forget 5 minutes later. The opportunity cost of distraction isn't just the time you waste, it's the life you could have built with that time. And that's what makes this so heartbreaking. There are people right now, maybe even you, who have the talent, the ideas, the potential to do something remarkable. But they won't, because they're trading their potential for dopamine hits. They're trading their future for the brief pleasure of scrolling. And the worst part, they don't even realize it's happening, because it's slow, it's gradual, it's comfortable. There's no dramatic moment where you think, I'm throwing my life away. It just happens. Day by day, scroll by scroll, year by year, until one day you wake up and realize you spent a decade consuming instead of creating, reacting instead of building, watching other people live instead of living yourself. But here's the good news. You can change this starting tomorrow morning, or better yet, starting with tonight's evening routine. You can reclaim your attention. You can rebuild your focus. You can take back control. It won't be easy. The pull will be strong. The temptation will be real. But it's possible. And it starts with one simple decision. Tomorrow morning, you don't reach for your phone. That's it. That's the first step. Everything else builds from there. Because once you prove to yourself that you can go 1 hour without it, you realize you can go 2, then a morning, then a whole day if you wanted to. You realize you're more in control than you thought. And that realization that you have power over your impulses, that you can choose differently, that changes everything. Because if you can control your attention, you can control your life. And if you can control your mornings, you can control your future. The question is, will you? All right, so you understand the theory. You know why mornings matter. You know discipline is a system, not a feeling. You know your attention is under siege. But now comes the real question. How do you actually build a morning routine that works? Not for some productivity guru on YouTube, not for your friend who wakes up at 4 a.m. and runs marathons. For you, in your real life, with your real constraints, Because here's what nobody talks about. Most morning routines fail not because people lack discipline, but because they're poorly designed. They're too ambitious, too rigid, too disconnected from reality. They're built on motivation and fantasy instead of honest self-assessment and realistic planning. So let's fix that. Let's build something sustainable, something that actually fits your life instead of forcing you to become someone you're not. First, you need to get brutally honest with yourself. Not aspirational honest, brutally honest. What time do you actually go to bed most nights? Not what time you wish you went to bed. What time do you realistically fall asleep? Because if you're going to bed at midnight and trying to wake up at 5 a.m., you're setting yourself up to fail. Your body needs sleep. That's not negotiable. Here's a better approach. Track your sleep for a week. Write down when you fall asleep and when you naturally wake up without an alarm. This gives you your baseline, your actual sleep need. Most adults need between 7 and 9 hours. You might be on the lower end or the higher end, but you need to know your number. Once you know your number, you work backward. If you need 8 hours of sleep and you want to wake up at 6 a.m., you need to be asleep by 10 p.m., which means you need to be in bed by 9:30 p.m. to account for the time it takes to fall asleep. And if you want to be in bed by 9:30, you need to start your wind-down routine by 8:30. See how this works? Everything connects. But most people skip this step. They just decide, I'm going to wake up early, without adjusting anything else in their life. Then they wonder why they're exhausted, why they can't stick with it, why they keep failing. You're not failing. Your system is failing you. Second, start embarrassingly small. I mean truly embarrassing. If you currently wake up at 8 a.m. and you want to become a morning person, don't try to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, wake up at 7:45 a.m., just 15 minutes earlier. That's it. But that's nothing. Exactly. That's the point. You're not trying to transform your life overnight. You're trying to build a sustainable habit. And sustainable habits are built through tiny, consistent changes that compound over time. 15 minutes earlier for a week, then 7:30 for a week, then 7:15. Gradually, over 2 or 3 months, you get to where you want to be. And it feels natural because you gave your body time to adjust. This is called progressive adaptation. It's how elite athletes train. They don't go from couch to marathon in a week. They build slowly, allowing their body to adapt at each stage. Your brain works the same way. It needs time to rewire. Rush the process, and you'll crash. Respect the process, and you'll succeed. Third, design your environment for success. This is huge. Most people try to rely on willpower alone, and willpower is a limited resource. It runs out, especially in the morning when you're tired and your brain isn't fully awake yet. So instead of relying on willpower, engineer your environment to make the right choice the easy choice. Here's what that looks like practically. Put your alarm across the room so you physically have to get out of bed to turn it off. And make it loud enough that you can't ignore it. Once you're standing, you're halfway there. Your body is up even if your mind is resisting. Charge your phone in a different room entirely, not just across the room, a completely different room. This removes the temptation to grab it first thing. If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Put them right next to your bed. When you wake up, You see them immediately. There's no friction, no decision fatigue. You just put them on. If you want to read, put the book on your pillow before you go to sleep. When you wake up, it's the first thing you see. These sound like tiny things, but tiny things add up to massive results. Because every small bit of friction you remove from the behavior you want makes it that much more likely you'll actually do it. And every bit of friction you add to the behavior you don't want makes it that much less likely. Now let's talk about what your actual morning routine should include. And here's the key. It should be customized to you. There's no one-size-fits-all perfect routine. What works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for your partner or your friend. And that's okay. But there are some universal principles. Your morning routine should energize you, not drain you. It should create clarity, not confusion. It should build momentum, not stress. If your routine leaves you feeling anxious or exhausted, it's not working. Period. Here's a simple template you can customize. Start with hydration. Before you do anything else, drink a full glass of water. Your body has been without water for 8 hours. It's dehydrated. Drinking water immediately kickstarts your metabolism, wakes up your digestive system, and helps flush out toxins. It's a tiny action with a disproportionate impact. Next, move your body. This doesn't have to be a full workout. It can be 5 minutes of stretching, a short walk around the block, some jumping jacks, a few yoga poses. The point is to wake up your body, get your blood flowing, shake off the physical stagnation of sleep. When your body moves, your brain wakes up faster. Then, create mental clarity. This is where you check in with yourself. Some people meditate, some journal, some just sit quietly with coffee and think. The method doesn't matter. What matters is that you're creating space for your thoughts to settle, for your priorities to surface, for your intention to form. This is the difference between reacting to your day and designing your day. After that, feed your mind something valuable. Read a few pages of a book. Listen to a podcast while you make breakfast. Watch an educational video, but not news, not social media, not anything that's going to spike your cortisol or scatter your attention. Something that inspires you, teaches you, or helps you grow. Finally, plan your day. This doesn't have to be complicated. Just identify your top 3 priorities for the day. What are the 3 things that, if you accomplish them, will make today a success? Write them down. Look at them. Commit to them. This creates focus. It gives your day direction instead of letting it drift randomly. Movement, hydration, mental clarity, learning, planning. 5 simple components. You could do all of this in 30 minutes, or you could spread it over 90 minutes if you have the time. The duration isn't what matters. What matters is that you're hitting the key elements that set up a successful day. But here's the critical part. You have to make this so easy that you can't not do it, especially at the beginning. If you design a 90-minute morning routine when you've never had a morning routine before, you're going to fail. Start with 15 minutes, then 20, then 30. Build gradually and give yourself permission to have different versions of your routine. Have your ideal routine for when everything goes well. Have a minimum viable routine for when life gets chaotic. Have a travel routine for when you're on the road. Flexibility isn't weakness. Flexibility is what makes a routine sustainable long-term. Let's talk about energy management, because this is where most people go wrong. They think time management is the answer. If I just wake up earlier, I'll have more time to get things done. But time without energy is useless. You can have all the hours in the world, but if you're exhausted, you won't accomplish anything meaningful. Energy management starts with understanding your chronotype. Are you naturally a morning person or an evening person? This is partially genetic. Some people's brains genuinely function better in the morning. Others peak in the afternoon or evening. And there's nothing wrong with either. Now, I'm not saying don't try to wake up earlier if you're an evening person. What I'm saying is be realistic about what you can expect from yourself during those early hours. If you're naturally an evening person, maybe your morning routine isn't about deep creative work. Maybe it's about taking care of your body, clearing your mind, and setting intention. Save the heavy mental lifting for when your brain actually works best. Energy also comes from what you eat and when you eat it. If you're loading up on sugary cereal or pastries for breakfast, you're going to crash hard by mid-morning. Your blood sugar will spike, then plummet, and you'll be reaching for more sugar or caffeine to compensate. This isn't sustainable. Instead, focus on protein and healthy fats in the morning. Eggs, Greek yogurt, nuts, avocado, whole grains. These foods provide steady energy that lasts for hours. They stabilize your blood sugar, keep you full, and support cognitive function. The difference in how you feel throughout the day is dramatic. And let's talk about caffeine. I'm not anti-coffee. I love coffee. But there's a smart way to use it and a dumb way. The dumb way is chugging coffee the second you wake up on an empty stomach, then drinking more throughout the day to fight off the crashes. The smart way is waiting 60 to 90 minutes after waking to have your first cup. Why? Because cortisol, your natural wake-up hormone, peaks in the first hour after waking. If you drink coffee during this peak, you're blocking cortisol production and training your body to rely on caffeine instead. But if you wait until your cortisol starts to dip, the caffeine works synergistically with your natural rhythms instead of against them. Also, stop drinking caffeine after 2 p.m. I know. You think you need that afternoon coffee to power through, but caffeine has a half-life of about 6 hours. If you drink coffee at 3 p.m., half of it is still in your system at 9 p.m. And even if you can fall asleep with caffeine in your system, it's reducing your sleep quality. You're not getting as much deep sleep, which means you're not recovering properly, which means you're more tired the next day, which means you need more caffeine, and the cycle continues. Break the cycle. Cut off caffeine by early afternoon. Yes, you'll feel tired for a few days. That's withdrawal. Push through it. Once you adjust, you'll sleep better, wake up more naturally, and need less caffeine overall. Now, let's address something crucial. What do you do when you fall off track? Because you will. Life happens. You'll get sick. You'll have a crisis. You'll travel. You'll have a terrible night's sleep. You'll oversleep. This is guaranteed. The question isn't if you'll break your routine. The question is what you do after you break it. This is where most people fail. They have one bad day and they spiral. They think, well, I already messed up, so what's the point? And they abandon the routine completely. Then weeks or months later, they try to start over from scratch, and the whole cycle repeats. Here's a better approach. The 2-day rule: never miss 2 days in a row. If you sleep through your alarm one day, fine. Don't beat yourself up. Don't waste energy on guilt. Just make absolutely sure you get back on track the next day. 1 day off is a blip. 2 days off is the beginning of a new pattern, a pattern of quitting. This also means being flexible enough to adapt. If you're traveling and your normal routine isn't possible, do a modified version, even if it's just 5 minutes of stretching and drinking water. The habit of doing the habit is more important than the specific actions. You're reinforcing the identity. I'm someone who has a morning routine. I'm someone who shows up for myself. Let me share a framework that helps with sustainability: the habit stacking method. Instead of trying to remember to do your new morning habits, you attach them to things you already do automatically. For example, you already brush your teeth every morning, so you stack a new habit onto that trigger. After I brush my teeth, I drink a glass of water. After I drink water, I do 5 minutes of stretching. After stretching, I sit down to journal for 5 minutes. Each habit becomes the trigger for the next habit. This creates a chain, and chains are harder to break than individual habits. Plus, you're leveraging the neural pathways you've already built instead of trying to create entirely new ones from scratch. Another powerful technique: implementation intentions. This is just a fancy term for planning exactly when and where you'll do something. Instead of saying, "I'm going to exercise in the morning," you say, "I will do 20 minutes of yoga in my living room at 6:15 a.m. The specificity matters. It removes decision-making from the equation. You've already decided. You just have to execute. Research shows that people who use implementation intentions are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through on their goals. Why? Because you're not relying on motivation or willpower in the moment. You've made the decision in advance when your willpower was high. In the morning, you just followed a plan. Here's another thing that helps: accountability. Tell someone about your new morning routine: a partner, a friend, a coworker. Better yet, find someone who wants to build a morning routine too and check in with each other. Just a quick text: "Did it?" That's all it takes. Knowing someone else is expecting you to show up makes it harder to skip or use a habit tracker. Get a calendar and put a big X on every day you complete your morning routine. Once you get a chain of X's going, you won't want to break it. This is called the "don't break the chain" method, popularized by comedian Jerry Seinfeld. He used it to write jokes every single day. The visual representation of your consistency is surprisingly motivating. Now let's talk about identity, because this is the deepest level of habit change. Everything we've discussed so far, the practical strategies, the environmental design, the specific habits, all of that is important. But none of it matters long-term if you don't change your identity. Here's what I mean. Most people try to build habits through outcome-based goals. I want to lose weight, so I'm going to work out every morning. But this is backward, because the habit is tied to the outcome. And if the outcome doesn't come quickly enough, the motivation disappears. Instead, focus on identity-based habits. Don't say, "I'm trying to work out more." Say, "I'm an athlete." Don't say, "I'm trying to wake up earlier." Say, "I'm a morning person." When your habits are tied to your identity instead of your outcomes, they become self-reinforcing. You do them because they're consistent with who you are, not because you're trying to achieve something. And here's the beautiful part. Your identity isn't fixed. It's not something you're born with. It's something you choose and then reinforce through your actions. Every time you get up on time, you're casting a vote for the identity of morning person. Every time you choose to stretch instead of scroll, you're voting for a healthy person. And eventually, those votes add up to a new identity. You're not trying to be disciplined anymore. You just are. This is the ultimate goal. To reach a point where your morning routine isn't something you have to force yourself to do. It's just who you are. And when you reach that point, everything else becomes easier. Because you're not fighting against yourself anymore. You're aligned. Let's bring this all together. Because you can have all the knowledge in the world, all the strategies, all the techniques, but none of it matters unless you actually decide to change. And I mean really decide. Not the kind of decision you make on Sunday night when you're feeling motivated. The kind of decision that sticks on Wednesday morning when you're exhausted and every part of you wants to stay in bed. I want to tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago. I was stuck, completely stuck. I had goals, ambitions, dreams, but I wasn't making any real progress. I kept telling myself I was busy, that I was trying, that things would get better eventually. But the truth is, I was lying to myself. I wasn't busy. I was distracted. I wasn't trying. I was procrastinating. And things weren't going to get better eventually because I wasn't doing anything differently. My mornings were a disaster. I'd set my alarm for 6 a.m. with all these grand plans about what I'd accomplish. But when it went off, I'd hit snooze, not once, not twice, sometimes 5 or 6 times. I'd finally drag myself out of bed around 7:30, already feeling behind, already feeling like a failure. Then I'd grab my phone and scroll through social media while I made coffee, feeding my brain junk before it even fully woke up. By the time I actually started my day, it was 9 a.m., and I'd already wasted 3 hours. And that pattern, that weak, scattered, reactive pattern, would continue all day long. I'd bounce between tasks, never fully focusing on anything, always distracted, always looking for the next dopamine hit. And at the end of the day, I'd collapse, exhausted, having accomplished almost nothing that actually mattered. I knew something had to change, but knowing isn't enough. I'd known for years. What I needed was to actually do something about it. And one night, after another wasted day, I made a real decision. Not a "I'll try harder tomorrow" decision. A "this ends now" decision. I didn't try to overhaul my entire life overnight. I just made one simple commitment. I would get out of bed the first time my alarm went off. That's it. No snoozing, no negotiating, no, just 5 more minutes. When the alarm rang, I got up. Period. The first morning was brutal. My body felt like lead. My brain was screaming at me to go back to sleep. Every instinct I had was telling me this was unnecessary, uncomfortable, unfair. But I got up anyway. And you know what? I felt amazing. Not because I was well rested. I was exhausted. But because I won. I proved to myself that I could do it. The second morning was almost as hard, but slightly less. The third morning, still hard, but I expected it this time. By the end of the first week, something shifted. It still wasn't easy, but it wasn't a battle anymore. It was just what I did. And that one change, that one simple commitment to not hitting snooze, created a ripple effect through my entire life. Because when I got up on time, I had time to actually have a morning. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't stressed. I could sit with my coffee and think. I could plan my day. I could read. I could move my body. And starting my day this way changed how the entire day unfolded. I was calmer, more focused, more intentional, and over time, my whole life started shifting. I'm not special. I'm not superhuman. I'm just someone who got tired of being stuck and decided to do something about it. And if I can do it, you can too. But you have to actually decide. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after you finish this article and feel motivated for 20 minutes. Now, let me be very direct with you. You've been thinking about changing for a long time, maybe months, maybe years. You've read articles, watched videos, listened to podcasts. You know what you need to do. The information isn't the problem. The problem is you haven't actually committed. You've been window shopping for change, not buying it. And I get it. Change is scary. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to become someone you're not currently. And there's a part of you that wonders, what if I try and I fail? What if I can't do it? What if I'm just not that kind of person? Here's the truth. You probably will fail. Not permanently, but temporarily. You'll have bad days. You'll mess up. You'll hit snooze when you swore you wouldn't. You'll grab your phone when you promised yourself you'd wait. You'll skip your routine when you're tired or stressed or traveling. This is normal. This is part of the process. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success. The question isn't whether you'll fail. The question is what you'll do after you fail. Will you use it as evidence that you can't change? Or will you use it as data to help you improve your system? Will you quit? Or will you adjust and continue? Because here's what most people don't understand. The person who succeeds isn't the person who never fails. It's the person who fails and keeps going anyway. It's the person who misses a day and gets back on track the next day instead of spiraling into weeks of guilt and inaction. Resilience isn't about being perfect. It's about recovering quickly. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like a year from now if you actually committed to this? If you built a morning routine and stuck with it, not perfectly, but consistently, where would you be? What would you have accomplished? How would you feel? Now flip that question. What will your life look like a year from now if nothing changes? If you keep hitting snooze, keep scrolling, keep starting and quitting and starting again? Be honest. Where will you be? Probably exactly where you are now. Maybe even worse, because you'll be another year older with another year of regret piled on top. This is the fork in the road. You're standing at it right now. One path leads to the life you actually want. It's not an easy path. It requires discipline, discomfort, consistency. But it leads somewhere. The other path is comfortable, familiar, easy, and it leads nowhere. You get to choose, but you have to choose, because not choosing is choosing. Staying where you are is a choice. I want you to think about the person you want to become, not in some vague, abstract way. Specifically, what does that person do in the morning? How do they start their day? What habits do they have? How do they feel? Get a clear picture of this person in your mind. Now, here's the truth. That person isn't some future version of you that you'll magically become someday. That person is a choice you make every single morning. When your alarm goes off tomorrow, you can choose to be that person, or you can choose to be who you've always been. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is crossed one morning at a time. And here's something beautiful. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be slightly better. If you can win just 51% of your mornings, if you can make the right choice just slightly more often than the wrong choice, you will transform your life. Because those wins compound. They build on each other. They create momentum, and momentum is powerful. But you have to start, and the best time to start isn't Monday. It's not the first of the month. It's not after you finish reading this. It's tomorrow morning. That's your starting line. Everything you've read, everything you've learned, it all comes down to what you do when your alarm goes off tomorrow. Let me tell you what I want for you. I want you to experience what it feels like to win the morning. To get up on time, not because you have to, but because you chose to. To sit with your coffee in the quiet, planning your day instead of reacting to it. To move your body and feel alive. To read something that expands your mind. To look at your day with clarity and intention instead of anxiety and overwhelm. I want you to experience that feeling at the end of the day when you've actually accomplished something meaningful. When you're tired but satisfied. When you can go to bed knowing you showed up for yourself. That feeling is available to you every single day, but you have to claim it. Here's the thing about mornings. They're a clean slate. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed before. Tomorrow morning, you get to start fresh. You get another chance, and another one the day after that, and the day after that. As long as you wake up, you get another opportunity to choose differently. This isn't about being perfect. This isn't about never messing up. This is about showing up more often than you don't. This is about building a life where you're in control instead of being controlled. Where you're intentional instead of reactive, where you're growing instead of stagnating. And it all starts with that first moment, that first decision. When your alarm goes off and your bed is warm and every fiber of your being wants to hit snooze, that's the moment. That's where your future is built, not in grand gestures or big dramatic changes. In that tiny moment between sleep and consciousness where you decide who you're going to be today, most people underestimate the power of that moment. They think it doesn't matter. It's just sleep, right? It's just 5 more minutes. But it's not. It's a vote for your identity. It's a signal to your brain about who's in charge. And when you win that moment, when you choose growth over comfort, you set a tone for the entire day. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you this is easy. It's not. Especially at first. The first 2 weeks will be hard. Your body will resist. Your brain will throw every excuse at you. You'll be tired. You'll question whether it's worth it. You'll want to quit. This is normal. Expect it. Plan for it. But don't let it stop you, because on the other side of those 2 weeks is a different version of you. A version that wakes up and thinks, I've got this. A version that doesn't negotiate with themselves every morning. A version that has proven they can do hard things. And that version, that disciplined, intentional, in-control version, that's who you really are. You've just been buried under years of bad habits and weak decisions. Your job now is to uncover that person, to let them out, to give them space to emerge, And they will emerge, one morning at a time, one decision at a time, one small win at a time. Let me leave you with this. A year from now, you're going to be somewhere. That's guaranteed. Time is going to pass whether you use it wisely or waste it. The only question is where you'll be and who you'll be. And that's being decided right now. In the choices you make tomorrow morning and the morning after that and the morning after that. You can be the person who looks back a year from now and thinks, I can't believe I wasted another year. Or you can be the person who thinks, I can't believe how much I've changed. Both are possible. Both are available to you. You just have to choose. And choosing isn't a one-time thing. It's a daily thing, a moment-by-moment thing. It's choosing again and again and again until the choosing becomes automatic, until discipline becomes your default, until the person you want to be is just who you are. This is the power of morning habits. Not that they magically transform your life overnight, but that they give you a place to practice being the person you want to become, a laboratory where you can experiment, fail, adjust, and try again, a daily opportunity to prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you think. So here's my challenge to you. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off, don't think, don't negotiate, don't debate. Just get up, win that one moment, and then see how that one win makes you feel. See how it changes your day. See how it makes the next morning a little easier. Do that for a week, just 1 week. 7 wins, that's all I'm asking. 7 times where you choose growth over comfort. 7 times where you prove to yourself that you can do this. And at the end of that week, check in with yourself. How do you feel? Are you more focused, more energized, more in control? I'm willing to bet you'll notice a difference. And if you notice a difference in a week, imagine what a month looks like, or 3 months, or a year. Imagine who you could become if you just kept showing up for yourself every morning, if you kept casting votes for the identity you want to have, if you kept building momentum instead of breaking it. You have everything you need. You have the knowledge. You have the strategies. You have the capability. The only thing left is the decision, the commitment, the willingness to be uncomfortable for a little while so you can be fulfilled for a long time. Your alarm is going to go off tomorrow morning. That moment is coming. You can't avoid it, but you can prepare for it. You can decide right now while you're reading this, while you're thinking clearly what you're going to do. Make that decision now. Commit now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now. Because here's the secret. You'll never feel ready. There will never be a perfect time. There will always be an excuse, a reason to wait, a justification for putting it off. But life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It keeps moving, and you can either move with it intentionally or get dragged along reactively. I'm rooting for you. I genuinely am. Because I know what it's like to be stuck. I know what it's like to waste time and potential and opportunity. And I also know what it's like to break free, to take control, to become someone you actually respect. And I want that for you, but I can't do it for you. Nobody can. This is your choice, your life, your mornings, your future. So what's it going to be? Will you hit snooze tomorrow, or will you get up? Will you grab your phone, or will you grab your life? Will you drift through another day, or will you design it? The power has always been yours. The mornings have always been yours. You just have to claim them. Starting tomorrow, starting now. Your future self is waiting. Don't make them wait any longer.